The house on Willow Creek Road in Ashford, Vermont, looked like any other. A white colonial tucked behind bare trees, quiet and ordinary, the kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen. But inside, on a cold November evening, something dark was set in motion. A half-finished cup of coffee, a phone left off, and a silence that felt rehearsed. One person believed it was a momentary argument. The other had already made a decision. What happened behind those walls would unravel a marriage, destroy a family, and haunt a town. This is the story of love, lies, and a disappearance that changed everything. 34-year-old Melissa Holloway had been missing for less than a week when her name first appeared on local news. A beloved elementary school counselor, she was known for her patience, her calm voice, and her way of remembering every student's birthday. Her husband, Evan Holloway, was a maintenance technician at the town's power station, quiet and dependable, rarely the subject of gossip. They had been married for nearly 10 years, though some said the last 2 hadn't been easy. Those who knew them well described the couple as private, a polite way of saying distant. No one in Ashford had seen Melissa since the morning of Friday, November 4th, when she left school early, complaining of a migraine. By that Sunday, her car was still parked in the driveway, her phone went unanswered, and her social media had gone silent. At first, Evan claimed nothing was wrong. He told Melissa's colleague she had gone to visit her sister in upstate New York, that she needed a few days to clear her head. But when her sister, Tara Green, called the Ashford Police Department 2 days later saying she hadn't spoken to Melissa in weeks, the story began to crumble. Officers were dispatched for a welfare check. What they found inside the Holloway home was unsettling, not because of what they saw, but because of what they didn't. The house was spotless, unnaturally so. The sink was dry, the counters gleamed, and the faint smell of bleach hung in the air. In the master bedroom, the bed was neatly made with crisp hospital corners, a habit that Melissa, according to friends, didn't have. On the nightstand sat her phone, powered off but fully charged, and beside it, a half-empty cup of coffee that had gone cold. The front door had been locked from the inside, and Melissa's wallet and car keys were still on the hallway table. It was as if she had vanished mid-morning, leaving behind a scene that had been quietly rearranged to erase her. Detectives began interviewing neighbors, piecing together the last known movements of the missing woman. Linda Carey, who lived across the street, remembered hearing what she thought was an argument late Thursday night. It wasn't shouting exactly, she told investigators, but there was tension in the voices, like someone was trying not to be heard. Another neighbor reported seeing Evan's truck parked in the driveway all weekend, though no lights were on inside the house. He assumed the couple was away. By Monday, the search widened. The Vermont State Police Missing Persons Unit joined the case, conducting grid searches through the wooded area behind Willow Creek Road. Bloodhounds were brought in, combing through damp leaves and frostbitten soil. Nothing. Not a footprint, not a scent trail, not a single trace of where Melissa might have gone. Her phone records showed no outgoing calls or messages after Thursday evening. Her debit card hadn't been used. Every clue pointed back to that house. When questioned, Evan appeared calm. Too calm, according to one officer's notes. He recounted his version of events with precision, explaining that Melissa had been depressed lately, distant, talking about taking a break from everything. He said she packed a small duffel bag, took some cash, and left while he was at work. Yet when police checked his phone, they found no calls to her that weekend, no texts asking where she was. What they did find was a set of internet searches made late Thursday night. Terms like how long before someone is considered missing, and can bleach remove DNA from carpet. Investigators kept their discovery quiet, not wanting to spook the suspect before they had proof. But something about the house continued to gnaw at them. In the basement, beneath the shelves of paint cans and storage boxes, was a faint discoloration on the concrete floor, circular, uneven, as though something heavy had been dragged across it. A forensic team began testing the area, marking off sections, scraping samples, and photographing every inch. When the luminol spray revealed a blue fluorescence beneath the freshly painted surface, the officers exchanged glances. Whatever had happened in that basement wasn't an accident. For now, Evan Holloway remained free, but the evidence was growing. The town whispered, the media speculated, and the Hollow Creek case began to spread beyond Vermont's borders. Somewhere between love, lies, and silence, a woman had disappeared, and her story was only beginning to unfold. The investigation into Melissa Holloway's disappearance deepened as autumn slipped toward winter, the golden leaves of Vermont giving way to frost and silence. What had begun as a missing person inquiry was quickly shifting into something darker. Detectives now viewed the Holloway residence not as a scene of departure, but of confinement, maybe even of death. The forensics report from the basement arrived within days, and what it revealed removed any lingering doubt. The substance embedded in the concrete floor tested positive for human blood. The sample was partial, degraded, but matched Melissa's DNA. That finding changed everything. A quiet, polite community worker was no longer missing. She was presumed dead. And her husband, Evan Holloway, once described by neighbors as the kind of man who helped shovel driveways and fixed leaking gutters, was suddenly under intense scrutiny. Yet his behavior in the days that followed the discovery didn't fit the typical pattern investigators expected. He didn't run. He didn't lash out. Instead, he cooperated just enough to seem innocent. He gave television interviews, repeating that he believed Melissa was alive somewhere, that she had struggled with anxiety and sometimes vanished for a few days to recenter. But detectives could tell. Behind the calmness was calculation. When they searched Evan's truck, they found what at first seemed ordinary: a few tools, a roll of duct tape, and a set of work gloves. But beneath the rear seat, wrapped in an oil-stained rag, was a small folding knife. It appeared recently cleaned, but traces of blood lingered along the hinge. The forensics team noted that the blood type matched Melissa's. Evan was brought in for questioning. His story changed again. He said Melissa had cut herself days before she disappeared, that she might have bled in the truck when he drove her to work. It was thin, desperate, and inconsistent with the facts. Meanwhile, a digital forensics team began combing through Melissa's online presence. Her last email had been sent at 9:42 p.m. on November 3rd, the night before she vanished. It was addressed to one of her colleagues at Ashford Elementary, confirming an upcoming parent meeting. After that, there was nothing. No posts, no texts, no bank activity. Yet something unexpected appeared in Evan's records: a late-night purchase at a home improvement store made at 10:17 p.m. the same evening. He had bought 10 pounds of quick-drying cement, a new spade, and heavy-duty garbage bags. He claimed they were for a drainage project in the backyard, but police found no such work ever began. As the days stretched into weeks, public interest in the Hollow Creek case exploded. National news outlets picked up the story, painting Evan as a man with secrets. Old acquaintances surfaced with new information. A woman named Danielle Crane, who had briefly worked with Evan 3 years earlier, told investigators they had once had an affair that ended badly when she found out he was married. She said Evan often spoke about feeling trapped, that he resented Melissa for making all the decisions. Detectives didn't dismiss the statement, but they needed more, something physical, something buried. On December 2nd, a search warrant allowed them to excavate sections of the Holloway property. Beneath the frost-hardened soil near the back fence, they uncovered a large patch of disturbed earth. For hours they dug, cameras flashing under floodlights as neighbors watched from their windows. The discovery was not what they expected. Wrapped in layers of plastic and duct tape was not a body, but something equally chilling: a bloodstained mattress topper, cut into sections, alongside a woman's hairbrush, a phone charger, and two burned pieces of fabric that appeared to be clothing. The items were partially melted, as if someone had tried to destroy them with fire before burying the remains. Investigators now had enough evidence to charge Evan with obstruction of justice and tampering with physical evidence. He was arrested on December 3rd, led from his home in handcuffs as reporters shouted his name. Yet, as the snow began to fall over Ashford, the most critical question remained unanswered. Where was Melissa? Even with mounting evidence, her body was nowhere to be found, and without it, the charge of murder could not hold. While Evan sat in county jail awaiting a bail hearing, detectives focused on what he might have done in the days after Melissa's disappearance. Security cameras from local gas stations showed his truck traveling north toward Danville, Vermont, just hours after he claimed to be home searching for her. The footage captured him purchasing a can of gasoline, a bag of ice, and several energy drinks, but nothing more. Beyond that point, there was no trace of the truck for nearly 6 hours, until it reappeared on a camera near Groton State Forest, an area dense with pine trees and crisscrossed by back roads that locals said could swallow a person whole. Search teams combed the forest for days, fighting freezing temperatures and rough terrain. They found tire marks leading off a service trail and a patch of scorched earth covered in snow, but no human remains. Still, one small piece of evidence turned the case on its head. Near a frozen creek bed, partially buried beneath leaves and ice, officers recovered a silver necklace, engraved with the initials MH and the date 2012, the Holloway's wedding year. When investigators presented the necklace to Evan, he looked at it for a long time before saying quietly that Melissa never took it off. His expression betrayed something between fear and resignation. For detectives, that moment marked a shift. They no longer believed this was a disappearance. It was a cover-up, one built carefully, perhaps with the help of someone else. Rumors began circulating that Evan hadn't acted alone. A co-worker mentioned he'd been spending unusual amounts of time with a woman named Rachel Dunning, a recent hire at the power plant. When questioned, Rachel denied involvement, but admitted she'd helped Evan dispose of some trash bags from his truck days after Melissa was last seen. She said she didn't know what was inside them, but her description of their weight and smell unsettled investigators. By mid-December, what had started as a missing person investigation had spiraled into a suspected murder conspiracy. Still, the one thing they needed most, Melissa's body, remained missing, buried somewhere in the snow-covered wilderness of northern Vermont. And as detectives prepared to resume their search, a new clue surfaced, one that would change everything they thought they knew about the Hollow Creek case. The third week of December brought the kind of cold that sank deep into the bones, the kind that silenced even the forests around Ashford, Vermont. Yet within the stillness, the investigation was accelerating. Detectives had expanded the search beyond Groton State Forest, mapping out a 40-mile radius from the last known ping of Melissa Holloway's phone. Each new lead seemed to circle back to the same conclusion, that she had never left Vermont alive. What they needed now was proof, something tangible, something that would turn suspicion into certainty. That proof arrived not through the woods, but through data. A forensic technician analyzing the couple's home security system discovered fragments of deleted footage. The Holloways had installed 2 outdoor cameras the year before, one facing the driveway, the other toward the backyard. The recordings between November 3rd and 6th were missing, but digital recovery software restored a few crucial seconds. The timestamp showed 2:41 a.m. on November 4th, the night Melissa vanished. In the grainy image, a shadowed figure, identified as Evan, appeared dragging what looked like a heavy object wrapped in fabric toward the garage. The object was roughly the size and shape of a human body. Moments later, the light from the garage flickered on and remained illuminated for nearly 3 hours. When confronted with the footage, Evan offered no explanation, insisting the footage was distorted and that he had been moving storage boxes. But investigators no longer needed his word. The evidence was beginning to converge, and quietly, the district attorney's office prepared a no-body homicide charge, a rare but possible prosecution under Vermont law if the circumstantial case was strong enough. Then came an unexpected twist. A retired truck driver named Harold McGinnis called the sheriff's office after seeing a televised report. He said that around dawn on November 4th, he had been driving Route 302 toward Montpelier when he saw a dark pickup pulled onto a dirt service road near the Holloway property. He remembered because the driver's door was open, and a woman, possibly Melissa, stood near the ditch, looking unsteady, as though arguing with someone still inside the vehicle. The sight bothered him enough to recall the date. Investigators took his statement seriously. If true, it meant Melissa may have been alive hours after she supposedly vanished, and that someone else could have been involved after all. As detectives re-examined Evan's timeline, inconsistencies multiplied. His cell phone was inactive between 2:30 and 6 a.m. that morning, and his GPS tracker, previously believed to have been turned off, showed brief, sporadic signals near East Bar, close to an abandoned quarry. That location became their next focus. Within days, teams arrived with cadaver dogs, drones, and portable heaters to thaw the frozen ground. The search stretched into Christmas week, a grim procession through ice and silence, until finally, on December 23rd, a canine unit alerted to a shallow depression near the edge of the quarry. Beneath layers of snow, leaves, and plastic sheeting, they uncovered partial human remains. The recovery took 2 days, as each fragment had to be carefully lifted, cataloged, and preserved. Though decomposition was advanced, dental records confirmed the identity. It was Melissa Holloway. The position of the body, the bindings, and the surrounding debris told investigators more than words ever could. Her hands had been tied behind her back, her mouth taped shut, and a deep laceration marked her temple, consistent with blunt force trauma. Wrapped around her wrist was a length of cord identical to the one found in Evan's tool shed. The discovery shattered whatever doubt had remained. Evan was formally charged with first-degree murder on December 26th, the day after Christmas, while the rest of the country celebrated. But the Hollow Creek case was far from over, because the evidence in the quarry told a story that extended beyond him. Investigators found a second set of tire tracks beside Evan's truck prints, smaller, belonging to a different vehicle, possibly an SUV. And when they traced the partial shoe impressions left in the thawing mud, they matched a pair of size 7 hiking boots, the same brand and size that Rachel Dunning, Evan's co-worker and rumored lover, was known to wear. Under questioning, Rachel's composure cracked. What began as denial shifted to half-truths. She admitted that Evan had confided in her about his failing marriage, that he'd said Melissa was planning to leave and take everything. Rachel claimed that on the night of November 3rd, he had shown up at her apartment trembling, saying, "It's done. I need help." She swore she never saw a body, only that she helped him load several heavy bags into her SUV and drove with him to a wooded area. She said she believed it was just garbage, but her voice faltered when detectives pressed for details. The bags, the location, the time, all lined up with the discovery at the quarry. Rachel Dunning was arrested for accessory to murder and disposal of human remains, but investigators suspected she knew more than she let on. Her phone messages, recovered from a deleted cloud backup, revealed weeks of planning between her and Evan, coded language that spoke of freedom, a new start, and cleaning up before November. In one message, sent 2 days before Melissa vanished, she wrote, "You said it would just be one night, then peace. Don't make me regret this." The narrative of the perfect husband, the grieving spouse, collapsed in an instant. The community of Ashford, once defined by its quiet routines, now became the backdrop for nightly news segments dissecting motive and betrayal. But even as prosecutors built their case, something about the timeline didn't add up. Melissa's body, based on decomposition, had likely been moved, not buried once, but twice. It raised a haunting question. If Evan and Rachel buried her together, who had moved her later? And as winter deepened and the case appeared closed, a final, chilling revelation waited just beneath the surface. One that would show the Hollow Creek mystery was not about one killer, but two. The arrest of Evan Holloway and Rachel Dunning sent shockwaves through Ashford, Vermont, transforming the quiet town into the setting of a true crime story that seemed almost too intricate to be real. Yet, even as the evidence appeared airtight, the blood, the footage, the recovered remains, something still unsettled the investigators. The coroner's report raised an inconsistency that no one could ignore. The pattern of decomposition and insect activity suggested that Melissa Holloway's body had not been in the quarry the entire time. It had been relocated weeks after her death, meaning someone had returned, disturbed the grave, and buried her again in a new location. The question was simple but chilling. Who moved her and why? Evan was in custody from early December onward. Rachel was arrested shortly after the body was found. Neither had access to the quarry. So who went back? The answer came from a direction no one expected. During a second sweep of the Holloway home, detectives discovered a small box hidden behind insulation in the attic. Inside were several flash drives labeled by date. The contents revealed that Melissa had been secretly recording video journals for months before her disappearance. The first entries were personal, reflections about her marriage and her struggle to forgive Evan's infidelity. But as the recordings progressed, they took on a different tone, fearful, guarded, aware. In one of the final videos dated October 31st, she spoke directly to the camera, her eyes red from crying. "If something happens to me," she said quietly, "please don't believe it was random. Someone's been in this house at night. Things move. I hear footsteps when Evan's asleep. I thought I was imagining it, but I'm not." That recording changed the course of the case. It suggested the possibility that a third person, someone neither Evan nor Rachel had mentioned, had been inside the home before Melissa's disappearance. Forensics went back through the digital evidence, scanning fingerprints, hair samples, and traces found in the basement. One fingerprint lifted from the plastic sheeting near where Melissa's blood was discovered did not belong to Evan or Rachel. It matched someone else. Alan Dunning, Rachel's older brother. Alan had a minor criminal history, mostly petty theft and drug charges, but he also worked as a contract laborer, sometimes alongside Evan on small repair projects. When police brought him in for questioning, his story unraveled quickly. He admitted that after Rachel's arrest, he panicked. He said he didn't want her to take the fall alone. So he went to the quarry one night in mid-December, dug up Melissa's remains, and moved them deeper into the forest, believing he was helping cover Rachel's tracks. But the coroner's report proved the body had already been disturbed before that date. Alan was lying, or at least not telling everything. Investigators pressed harder. Eventually, the truth surfaced, a version of it, anyway. Alan confessed that Rachel had called him the night Melissa died. She told him Evan had gone too far, and that she needed help fixing it. When he arrived at the house, Melissa was already dead. The couple had wrapped her body and were arguing about what to do next. Evan, desperate and shaking, had begged him to help with disposal. Alan agreed, driven by loyalty to his sister. He admitted they transported the body that night to the quarry and buried it under a tarp and soil. Weeks later, fearing discovery after the first police search, Alan returned alone to move the remains. He said Rachel never knew he had done it. The revelation completed the puzzle. The affair, the deception, the panic, all had culminated in a killing that was both spontaneous and meticulously concealed. Prosecutors now had a triad of culpability: Evan as the principal offender, Rachel as the accessory before and after the fact, and Alan as an accessory to the concealment of evidence. The trials that followed stretched for over a year, each testimony peeling back another layer of betrayal and manipulation. During the proceedings, Evan's demeanor remained eerily composed. He portrayed himself as a man driven to the edge by marital tension, claiming Melissa had threatened to leave him and ruin him financially. His defense argued that the killing was not premeditated, that it happened in a moment of rage. But the jury saw through it. The footage, the purchases, the bleach, the planning, all pointed to intent. Rachel's defense relied on her cooperation, painting her as a woman manipulated by a man she trusted. Alan's defense pleaded for leniency, citing his role as misguided assistance under pressure. On May 30th, 2024, the verdict was delivered in the Superior Court of Vermont. Evan Holloway was found guilty of first-degree murder, obstruction of justice, and abuse of a corpse. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rachel Dunning was convicted of accessory to murder and received a 15-year sentence, with eligibility for parole after 10. Her brother, Alan, pleaded guilty to tampering with evidence and received 6 years, to be served concurrently with a prior conviction. In the courtroom, Evan showed no visible reaction as the judge read the sentence. His expression was blank, almost tranquil, as though the verdict had finally confirmed what he already knew was inevitable. Rachel wept silently beside her attorney, her shoulders trembling as her brother looked away, unable to meet her eyes. For the Holloway family, the outcome brought a muted sense of justice, but no real peace. Melissa's parents, who had sat through every day of testimony, left the courtroom hand in hand, saying only that they hoped their daughter could finally rest. Outside, the media swarmed, the headlines branding it the Hollow Creek murder, a story that would become one of Vermont's most haunting domestic crimes. Yet beneath the public fascination lay a deeper tragedy, one that stretched far beyond the courtroom. It was not just the story of a marriage gone wrong, but of 3 lives consumed by deceit and desperation. Evan could have walked away. Rachel could have refused to help. Alan could have chosen to tell the truth. Instead, each made a decision that drew them further into the darkness. In the end, Melissa Holloway's life was taken needlessly, destroyed not by chance, but by deliberate cruelty and cowardice. A future erased for reasons that brought nothing but sorrow. Thanks for watching Last Clue. From hidden motives to haunting truths, we bring you the stories that reveal what people are capable of behind closed doors. If you're fascinated by mysterious disappearances, cold cases, and justice finally served, make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications, and join us as we uncover the darkest corners of human nature, one clue at a time.